All right, it is time to take a look at your money here on Good Morning Quad Cities. But first, here is your weekly stock market recap. The S&P 500 is up nearly 2%. The NASDAQ is up above 2.5%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up almost 2% as well. And consumer spending is really what moves our economy. And so the economy relies on you and I to have confidence in it so that we spend our money. We have Mark Ravicheski joining us this morning. There is actually a report called the Consumer Confidence Index.
It is.
So talk to us about, and a new one just came out. Talk to us what you saw in it.
Sure. A lot to talk about today about the Consumer Confidence Index. So everybody at home grab their big bucket of coffee and let's go. So the Consumer Confidence Index, David, has a benchmark of 100. So any level above that 100 mark indicates a level of optimism by consumers on their jobs, their income, the state of the economy. And the importance to Wall Street is that optimistic consumers do tend to spend their money much more freely, which then fuels and powers the economy forward.
Makes sense.
In February, the Consumer Confidence Index was reported at 102.9. This is down from the 106 that was reported in January and down from the 109 level in December. Remember, with a benchmark of 100, this means that consumers, for the most part, are still, quite confident. The interesting thing about the Consumer Confidence Index is that it's made up of two components here. Your level of optimism for your current situation. Look at this. Extremely sky high at 152.8, and your level of optimism 6 months down the road, just the opposite, David. Look at this, just 69.7. So there's this big gap, this big difference between short-term and long-term levels of consumer confidence.
So people are saying that right now I'm fine. If things stay the way they are, I'd still be fine. But 6 months from now, and which isn't surprising because we have so much uncertainty. We've seen rising interest rates, wages not keeping up. I mean, this is really just causing a lot of anxiety for consumers.
Exactly. Your focus on the short-term, long-term is spot on here. Typically, short-term and long-term levels of consumer confidence, for the most part, David, do tend to kind of ebb and flow together. But what we're seeing more and more of is this growing divergence in consumer attitudes between their current situation and their future outlook for the U.S. economy. Now, this very, very high level of optimism consumers are showing, again, for their current situation, in my opinion, is being driven by a fairly strong labor market. The national unemployment rate is currently at 3.4%, still near that 50-year low. And look, when jobs are plentiful, consumers tend to be optimistic. They tend to feel secure.
Right.
However, all of this growing uncertainty and anxiety about the economy dipping back into a recession later this year has created a much more pessimistic, longer-term outlook for the U.S. economy, and that's what we see here.
Okay, so how can we as consumers decide if we should have confidence or not?
Oh,
You're like,
good question.
Right, here's my magic 8-ball.
Let me break out my crystal ball here. Well, we are starting to see some initial cracks form in consumer spending, but look, I don't think that consumer spending is literally going to fall off a cliff. I would view consumer spending as still fairly strong, but again, starting to show some initial signs of weakness. The big concern for Wall Street, though, David, with consumer confidence is this very, very low level of consumer confidence for the future outlook of the U.S. economy. If you're a consumer and you're starting to get concerned about your job, your income, the state of the economy later this year, you may already kind of start, tightening up your spending, tightening up your budget in anticipation of some of those troubled waters that you're expecting to see later on this year.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. This morning we're reporting about the Federal Reserve expecting to raise interest rates again, even higher than what they initially expected because consumers are spending their money. But we are seeing that confidence is high, so people are spending a little bit more. Talk about why they're kind of working against each other, it appears.
Well, remember, short-term versus long-term. Remember, with a benchmark of 100, Short-term
That's pretty
current
high.
consumer confidence is 152.8. Right now, consumers are still have a level of confidence, and so we're still seeing some good level of consumer spending. The concern for Wall Street, again, is what happens to that spending 6 months down the road when all of this anxiety of the U.S. economy dipping back into a recession kind of starts to take hold in consumers' outlook.
Okay. All right, Mark, thank you so much for joining us again.
Absolutely. Great to see you again.
You as well. And here's